What if the government agency created to fight foreign spies turned its most powerful tools on its own people? Imagine your private letters being opened, your conversations tracked, your political beliefs filed away, not by an enemy state, but by your own government. This isn't a spy movie plot. It was the reality of Operation Chaos, a top-secret CIA program that ignored the Constitution and declared a secret war on hundreds of thousands of Americans. For 7 years, the CIA, an agency legally forbidden from operating inside the U.S., ran one of the largest domestic surveillance programs in American history. This is the story of how it happened, who they targeted, and why its shadow still hangs over us. To understand how the CIA ended up at war with Americans, you have to go back to the 1960s. The country was a pressure cooker. The Vietnam War was raging, and at home, the streets were filled with protests. Hundreds of thousands of Americans, from students to civil rights leaders, were marching for peace and equality. The air was thick with change, but from inside the White House, it looked like an insurrection. President Lyndon B. Johnson and Richard Nixon after him just couldn't believe the dissent was homegrown. They were convinced the anti-war movement wasn't a reflection of American anger, but was being secretly funded and controlled by foreign powers like the Soviet Union or China. It was a suspicion that tipped into paranoia. Frustrated that the FBI couldn't find this foreign conspiracy, Johnson turned to the one agency he thought could get answers, no matter the rules: the CIA. In 1967, he gave his Director of Central Intelligence, Richard Helms, a direct and illegal order. Find the foreign puppeteers you believe are pulling the strings of American protest. That presidential command was the seed from which a monstrous operation would grow. What President Johnson ordered was a flagrant violation of the CIA's charter. The National Security Act of 1947, the law that created the agency, drew a clear line. The CIA was to have no internal security functions. Its job was to spy on the rest of the world, not on the United States. But when the president gives a direct order, an agency like the CIA has a choice: obey the law or obey the commander-in-chief. Under Director Richard Helms, the CIA chose the president. And so, Operation Chaos was born. It started small, at first just using CIA stations abroad to keep an eye on American students traveling overseas. But it spun out of control, fast. The mission was simple: prove the White House's theory of foreign interference. The only problem? The evidence wasn't there. Report after report from the CIA told the White House they could find no evidence of any contact between the most prominent peace movement leaders and foreign embassies. But that wasn't the answer the presidents wanted. Instead of ending the program, they ordered the CIA to dig deeper. The failure to find a conspiracy wasn't taken as proof it didn't exist, but as a sign they just weren't looking hard enough. If there was no foreign conspiracy to find, then Operation Chaos would have to build a surveillance machine so big it could watch everybody. The program morphed from a side project into a sprawling domestic spy ring. The CIA started recruiting informants and placing undercover agents inside anti-war groups, student organizations, and civil rights movements. Agents posed as radical students and peace activists, all to infiltrate and report on the private lives of American citizens. The sheer scale was staggering. The agency eventually opened files on over 7,200 Americans and built a computer index with the names of over 300,000 people and organizations. These weren't foreign spies. The targets were groups like Students for a Democratic Society, the Black Panther Party, and even the Women's Liberation Movement. People like Martin Luther King Jr. were spied on for nothing more than opposing the Vietnam War. The methods were just as invasive. Under a sister program, HT Lingual, the CIA illegally intercepted and opened the mail of private citizens. They wiretapped phones to listen in on conversations. They even bought a garbage collection company in Washington, D.C., just to sift through the trash of activists and organizations. The CIA built a machine designed to treat American dissent as a hostile threat and every activist as a potential enemy. How did this happen? How could an American intelligence agency so blatantly ignore the law? It was a toxic mix of pressure from the White House and a culture of total secrecy. Inside the CIA, legal questions were either ignored or just brushed aside under the banner of national security. Director Richard Helms even issued a directive stating that chaos was a highest category priority, putting it on par with spying on the Soviet Union and China. This wasn't just rule-bending, it was a direct assault on the U.S. Constitution. The First Amendment, which protects free speech and the right to protest, becomes meaningless if you think a government agent is in the room with you. The Fourth Amendment, which guards against unreasonable searches, was violated every time a letter was opened or a phone was tapped without a warrant. The program created a chilling effect. How can you speak your mind when you suspect an informant is listening? How can you organize a protest when you fear your name will land in a secret government file? This was the real damage of Operation Chaos. It destroyed the trust between a government and its people, turning the tools of national security into weapons of political control. For 7 years, Operation Chaos ran in total darkness. But secrets this big don't stay secret forever. The threads started to come loose with the Watergate scandal, which exposed a culture of lawlessness at the very top of the Nixon administration. The public was suddenly ready to believe that the institutions meant to protect them might actually be betraying them. Then, the bombshell dropped. On December 22, 1974, journalist Seymour Hersh published a front-page story in the New York Times. Huge CIA operation reported in U.S. against anti-war forces. Hersh didn't have the operation's name, but he had the story. A massive illegal domestic spying campaign by the CIA. The article sent shockwaves through Washington. The secret was out. The backlash was so intense that President Gerald Ford was forced to create a special commission, the Rockefeller Commission, to investigate. The Rockefeller Commission was just the start. The U.S. Senate knew the problem went deeper and launched its own investigation, led by Senator Frank Church of Idaho. The Church Committee, as it became known, conducted the most extensive review of intelligence activities in American history. For 16 months, the committee pulled the secret world of American intelligence into the light. They interviewed over 800 witnesses and dug through mountains of classified documents. High-ranking CIA officials were forced to testify under oath about programs the public never even knew existed. The committee's final report was damning. It confirmed that the CIA and other agencies had engaged in widespread illegal spying, violating their own rules and the constitutional rights of countless Americans. They didn't just uncover chaos. They exposed the FBI's COINTELPRO program that targeted civil rights leaders and the NSA's Project Shamrock that illegally collected telegrams. The Church Committee concluded that the intelligence community had been operating for years without any meaningful oversight, driven by the political paranoia of presidents rather than the rule of law. It was a landmark moment that proved why Congress had to be able to watch America's powerful spy agencies. The story of Operation Chaos is a critical chapter in American history that too often gets forgotten. If you think these kinds of stories, the secret ones, need to be told, take a moment to like and subscribe. and tell us in the comments, what other declassified operation should we uncover next? After the Church Committee's revelations, Congress passed major reforms. It created permanent intelligence oversight committees in the House and Senate to act as watchdogs. It also passed the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, or FISA, in 1978, setting up a secret court to approve surveillance warrants. These changes were a direct answer to the abuses of chaos, an attempt to put the genie of unchecked spying back in the bottle. But the story doesn't end there. Operation Chaos is a permanent cautionary tale. It shows the constant tension between national security and personal liberty, and how easily a government, when it's afraid, can turn on its own citizens. Today, the technology for this kind of surveillance is something the CIA of the 70s could only have dreamed of. It's in our pockets and in our homes. The questions raised by chaos are more relevant than ever. How much privacy are we willing to give up for a feeling of security? Who is watching the watchers? The legacy of chaos is a chilling reminder that freedom requires constant vigilance, not just against enemies abroad, but against the abuse of power right here at home.